You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And welcome to our show today. It is Wednesday, September 9th, 2020, hump day, middle of the weekday. Boy, it feels like the week just started yesterday, and here we are in the middle already. We have a lot to talk about today. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble here. Our second hour on-air guest is Richard Gage from Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, so we're looking forward to that. So we got a lot of news to get out of the way before he joins us on there. Let's get right on into it. Right now, Donald Trump is on TV. He announced his, he just ended, as a matter of fact. And he just announced an additional 20 names to his list of potential Supreme Court nominees and basically dared Biden to do exactly the same. Unfortunately, the reporters in the room didn't want to talk about the Supreme Court. They wanted to talk about allegations from Bob Woodward's new book, which is claiming that Trump has downplayed the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, Trump is saying, well, we're trying to avoid a panic here, which, does make a lot of sense here. But the Democrats want to be able to continue to sell the idea that Donald Trump has mishandled this pandemic from day one. And he specifically named Pelosi and Biden as saying that he was wrong to close the borders with China and so forth and so on. Anyway, so let's get on to the news here. Speaking of Donald Trump has been nominated for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize on the basis of his peace deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. So Christian Tybring-Gjedde, a member of the Norwegian parliament, has nominated Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize here. Now, Trump has done something here that I don't agree with, mostly coming from the idea of politics as perception. And basically, he's facing a defamation lawsuit from rape accuser E. Jean Carroll that she filed against him after he called her a liar. And now that case is being taken over on Trump's behalf by Bill Barr's Department of Justice, claiming that Trump was acting as a president when he called her a liar. Well, that may be a justification for doing that, but you can count on the Democrats saying that he's misusing the government for personal purposes. So I don't think that was a smart thing for him to do here. Now, there's this U.S. Army veteran who was blown up on his fourth tour of Iraq, and he's asked critics of Donald Trump to stop using his image to illustrate the president's reported comments about losers and suckers. And remember, we reported yesterday that Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic has now admitted that the story may not be accurate after all, that his four anonymous sources may have misled him. All righty. Army Chief of Staff General James McConville responded to Donald Trump's comments that generals pursue war to enrich defense firms. He's out there saying troops are only sent to fight as a last resort. Now, Donald Trump has burned through about $800 million of his campaign war chest, including $11 million on Super Bowl ads and $156,000 on planes pulling banners. And they're saying it's a little tight over there. And Trump says he's willing to spend his own money again. He did it back in 2016, and he's saying he's willing to do it again, that he's going to do whatever it takes here. Now, we've noticed, obviously, they're doing a lot of campaigning this week. Biden is out there, and a lot of people are wondering if Biden coming out of his basement means the internal polling is not in his favor. Now, remember, there are two kinds of polls out there. The external polls are the ones that are intended for publication to sell you on an idea that Biden is ahead, or that Trump is ahead, or that Hillary was ahead. Then there are the internal polls, which are much more accurate, that are the ones the campaigns use to plan on. So Biden getting more aggressive in his pressing the flesh, as it were, may be an indication that the internal polls are actually turning against him. Even the external polls are tightening up, and Trump is gaining. Now, the Georgia Secretary of State claims to have found 1,000 cases of potential double voting during the primaries. And he's got about 1,000 cases. It's a felony in his state. And they say that they're going to go ahead and they're going to prosecute these people. Righty? Now, Trump is blasting Governor Cuomo and the Rochester mayor for having no idea what to do after the city's police chief and his command quit over the backlash to Daniel Prude's death. So they just all quit and took early retirement here. Now, House Judiciary Republicans send a letter to Nadler demanding he denounce violent left-wing extremism and acknowledge that Antifa is not a myth. So immediately convene a committee hearing to examine the civil unrest seen in Democrat-run cities across the United States. Okay, we talked about this before, double standards. Private gyms in San Francisco were forced to shut, but gyms in government buildings are open. And it's like Nancy Pelosi and her hair salon. You know, one set of rules for the ordinary people and another set of rules for those in government here. Now, millions of people have taken the COVID-19 antibody test, but scientists still don't know if positive tests mean people are protected against the virus, despite early promises they'd be safe to return to work. Even the New York Times is estimating 90% of the positive COVID test results really are negative. And they reviewed PCR test data compiled by officials in Massachusetts, New York, and Nevada, and determined that up to 90% of those testing positive carried either no virus or such a small amount as to be of no danger whatsoever. Furthermore, many of these people are not likely to be contagious. In fact, they said most of these people are not likely to be contagious. Okay, across our educational system, nearly 26,000 students on 29 campuses identified with COVID, but 0 have been hospitalized and 0 have died. So again, it's looking like this just is not the horror that we were all told it was going to be here. However, coronavirus patients who've been treated in the hospital still suffer lung damage up to 3 months after returning home. And it may be tied in with those ventilators, which if they're set too high can actually damage the interior of the lungs. AstraZeneca has halted their coronavirus vaccine trials over a suspected serious adverse reaction in a volunteer. And they announced that they'd paused their late-stage trials of the vaccine after a study participant developed an unexplained illness. The suspected adverse reaction to the drug prompted researchers to temporarily halt its program in order to conduct an investigation. There are 2 other vaccine candidates still in trials at this time. Now, Dr. Anthony Fauci has published a paper blaming climate problems for pandemics. And Dr. Fauci, who, as you know, is the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease Scientists, and the coronavirus doom prophet, recently released a pseudoscientific paper blaming the COVID-19 pandemic on humans angering Mother Earth. That is a little bit out there. Don't forget, yesterday we ran that story about the math error, which created a 10 times greater possibility of fatality than actually exists. And that was backed up by the Stanford and the UCLA studies that determined the actual fatality rate was only 10% of what we'd all been told. All right, over in New York, Cuomo has signed the restaurant's death warrant. The governor says he will not allow the city to reopen indoor dining because it doubles the amount of bars and there's no one to enforce the rules. Now, New York, pardon me, at this time, is the only major city in the world that is still not allowing indoor dining despite having an infection rate of less than 1% for the last 30 days. I think Cuomo's yielding to his megalomania here. Cuomo has added Delaware, Maryland, Ohio, and West Virginia to New York's mandatory quarantine list as it's revealed that 1 in 5 new New York City cases is connected to a traveler or returning residents. Over in Los Angeles, believe it or not, they've canceled Halloween. And after the mayor marched with thousands of protesters in the street, county health officials declared trick-or-treating unsafe. Well, it's going to save us a fortune in candy if they do that here. Anyway, turning to the international news, Georgia hosts major NATO troop drills while touting bid to join the alliance. Yet another provocation sure to increase tensions between Russia and NATO has begun this week in the form of war games hosted by the Republic of Georgia. There are now 5 war games around that western edge of Russia. That's got to be making them very, very nervous. Okay, on Monday, the Noble Partner 2020 military exercises kicked off, which involves close to 3,000 NATO troops from the U.S., Britain, France, and Poland. Centered on the capital of Tbilisi, the games will simulate an external invasion of the Caucasus country. The U.S. Army begins training exercises next week ahead of the main part of the games, which will go through September 18th. Georgian Prime Minister Georgi Gakaria sought to sidestep any accusations, describing the drills as a guarantee of peace in our country and are not directed against anyone. Okay. U.S. troops and Abrams tanks arrive in Lithuania for military drills along the border with Belarus. Now, weeks ago, NATO formally rejected embattled President Lukashenko's claim that the military alliance was busy building up forces along border areas with Belarus. NATO troops are at our gates. Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, and Ukraine are ordering us to hold new elections, he previously told supporters in a rally in mid-August. Lukashenko reportedly deployed Belarusian national troops to the western border in response, as tens of thousands of demonstrators demand he step down after they say what was a rigged election back on August 9th. While it's unclear the degree to which NATO forces were actually mobilizing or on alert in prior weeks, what is clear as of this weekend is that U.S. troops are indeed next door after having freshly arrived in preparation for 2 months of joint drills. Now, Lukashenko said last month that the World Bank and IMF offered him a bribe of $940 million in the form of COVID relief aid. In exchange for $940 million, the World Bank and IMF demanded the president of Belarus impose extreme lockdown on his people, force them to wear face masks, impose very strict curfews, impose a police state, and crash the economy. Gee, that sounds a lot like what's happening around here. The Turkish military strikes the Syrian army, suffers the first casualties since March. On September 5th, heavy clashes between Syrian troops and Turkish-backed militants broke out near the town of Flaifel and Sarakib in southeastern Idlib, near the town of El Ankawi in the northwest, Hama and Kafr Ta'al in western Aleppo. We're also getting a report that Russia may have lost one of their jets over Libya. The pilot was rescued, however. All righty. Now, Turkey has demolished a Greek Orthodox church known as the Hagia Sophia of Bursa. And they demolished this historic Greek Orthodox church in the region of Bursa. And it was known as the Hagia Sophia of Bursa because in its history, it served both as a church and a mosque in the past. Anyway. An Islamist terrorist leader has burnt the Swedish and Norwegian flags in retaliation for the burning of the Quran. It's intended as a reaction to the high-profile Quran burning in Malmo and anti-Islamic demonstrations in Norway, where a copy of the Quran was ripped. A Muslim leader linked to a terrorist organization in Syria has trampled on the Swedish and Norwegian flags and then set them on fire. Over in Yemen, a rights group is reporting that nearly 3,500 Yemeni children have been killed in Saudi airstrikes since 2015. In the report carried by Yemen's Arabic language Al Masirah network, Yemen's Human Rights Center said on Monday that some 7,200 Yemeni children were either killed or wounded in the imposed war. All right, over in Russia, the Russian Journalists Union has awarded their Solidarity Prize to Julian Assange, and who's, of course, currently fighting extradition to the United States at a British court. The head of the Union of Journalists Russia, Vladimir Soloviev, announced the award for the International Day of Solidarity of Journalists on yesterday, describing Assange as a true fighter for the freedom of speech. And they said, we had no doubts about who should receive this prize. We decided it should go to Julian Assange. Soloviev expressed concern about Assange's possible extradition to the U.S., which he said might be equal to life imprisonment or the death penalty. Assange, who'd already been informed about the award, donated the monetary part of the prize to the families of Russian journalists who died on duty, according to the Secretary of UJR, Timur Shafir, who accepted the prize on Assange's behalf. Over in Afghanistan, boy, it's been a busy day. Over in Afghanistan, their first vice president, Amrullah Saleh, has been lightly injured in a bomb attack targeting his convoy in the capital, Kabul. 24 other people were killed or wounded. The bomb attack targeted Saleh's convoy as he left his home and was heading to work in Kabul on Wednesday, earlier today. A video was released on Facebook soon after the attack, showing Saleh with bandages on his left hand. Saleh said, "I am fine, but some of my guards have been wounded. My son, who was in the car with me, and I are both fine. I have some burns on my face and hand. The blast was strong," he added. All righty, story that's coming on out of global research up in Canada. Is the U.S. and NATO preparing for war with Russia? I stand corrected. They're saying there are 6 military exercises at Russia's doorstep. And from inception, the U.S. has been addicted to war, glorifying it deceptively in the name of peace. Now, in 1982, the founder of the Pentagon's nuclear navy, Admiral Hyman Rickover, explained the risks to Congress in the age of superweapons able to end life on Earth if used in enough numbers, saying the following: "The lesson of history is when a war starts, every nation will ultimately use whatever weapons it has available to win." Adding, "I think the human race is going to wreck itself, and it's important we get control of this horrible force and try and eliminate it." Rickover regretted his role in what became a nuclear arms race. All righty. Over in Israel, they're very upset over this pending deal for the United Arab Emirates to acquire the F-35. Israel's Minister of Intelligence insisted Sunday it's impossible for the UAE to be allowed to buy advanced F-35 fighters. And he said, Eli Cohen said, "We will act against the sale of F-35s to the UAE. We oppose it." Cohen stressed that Israel would not allow the UAE or indeed any other country in the Middle East to purchase the jets. This is, he explained, because the sale of such military hardware would affect Israel's military hegemony in the region. Well, I guess they're getting used to the idea that the U.S. government is going to be spending, or rather sending, F-35s to the United Arab Emirates, because now Israel is demanding compensation from the U.S. Okay, the newspaper, let's see, in the Israeli newspaper, Yedioth Aharonot basically said that the Israeli security establishment is now discussing the compensation package Israel will demand, adding that among the options being examined is advancing the date for the supply of advanced American weapon system Israel by 1 year. According to the newspaper, the compensation request indicates that the Israeli defense establishment has realized that the arms deal between the U.S. and UAE will certainly be concluded in spite of their objections. Or Israel, they're throwing another tantrum here. And in the spirit of tantrums here, Israel has demolished 51 Palestinian structures in East Jerusalem as destruction continues in an unprecedented manner. They knocked down 51 Palestinian buildings, displaced 85 people, many of whom were children. The demolition of homes, which Israel insists were built without proper permits, have been conducted in an unprecedented manner in the past month. Okay, the U.S. is now saying that Iran must leave Syria, but Russia can stay, but allies get to keep the oil. The United States is continuing to defend its policy in Syria amid heated criticisms, with the State Department calling for the removal of Iranian and Iran-backed forces, but not a Russian withdrawal, as the Pentagon continues to back a mostly Kurdish-partnered militia that battles ISIS and secures the oil and gas reserves. Well, I can imagine that probably they understood Russia wouldn't go along with that anyway, so they tried to look, by saying, yeah, Russia can stay, like it's their idea. Iran has identified the perpetrators of an act of sabotage at Natanz nuclear facility in the central part of the country in July. And the spokesman for the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, Behruz Kamalvandi, said that while the details of the act of sabotage are still being investigated, the security forces have detected the agents who committed the act of sabotage, as well as the method, motives, and manner of the sabotage. Iran's defense minister Amir Hatami announced the country is working to expand its missile capabilities even further. In particular, the military is working on air-launched cruise missiles that could hit targets at a range of 1,400 kilometers. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials here, and we'll be back with more news after these few words from our sponsors.
Hello, I'm Dr. Leonard Horowitz. I was right 30 years ago in warning the world about threatening lab virus outbreaks, AIDS, and Ebola. I was right 20 years ago when FBI Director Robert Mueller made me a suspect in the anthrax mailings because I warned the Bureau before the CIA's biocrime and Cipro sales psyops happened. I was right about COVID-19 being an AIDS-laced mutagen planned to resurge this fall to excuse officials' profitable depopulation globalization agendas. And I was right about the only safeguards being antioxidants and holy spiritual sustenance. Vitamin C, D, zinc, chlorophyll, oxygen, and oxysilver especially transmits the frequency resonance to neutralize the expanded function bioweapon. Oxysilver is a double superconductor of the healing power of love. It is the first nutraceutical invented to amplify prayer power and the faithful, loving intention of your heart. Buy, try, and stockpile Oxysilver through healthyworldstore.com.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant them anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say we did.
Welcome back to our show here, and a friendly reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network is in the middle of a perpetual fundraiser, for that matter, so is whatreallyhappened.com. And the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. Okay, getting on down to Ukraine. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas announced his readiness to introduce new sanctions against Belarus and personally threatened President Lukashenko with further tightening of punitive measures as a consequence for his alleged handling in response to post-election protests. These protests have been financed by NGOs backed by the Open Societies Foundations. And you know who that means, don't you? Now, regarding the demands of Heiko Maas, these were reported on September 5th by the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, citing an interview with the head of German diplomacy in the Bild am Sonntag newspaper. So who is it who wants to overthrow President Lukashenko? The Western press highlights Svetlana Tikhanovskaya as the winner of the Belarusian presidential election and accuses outgoing President Alexander Lukashenko of violence, nepotism, and election rigging. However, an analysis of this country shows that the policies of its president correspond with the wishes of its citizens. Behind this fabricated quarrel lies the specter of Ukrainian Euromaiden and a provoked rupture with Russia, which would be a bad idea, in my opinion, here. Okay, now Lukashenko just did something very, very clever. He has issued a pardon for all the supporters of his opponent, not the opponent himself, but basically it's resulted in the opposition fracturing and fragmenting into different factions. And that was a very, very smart thing to do. The other thing that Lukashenko has done is he's raising the possibility of holding new elections. And he's remaining defiant after weeks of mass protests that have brought parts of the country, especially the capital of Minsk, to a standstill following his disputed August 9th re-election to a sixth term. He's actually been seen walking the presidential compound grounds in combat fatigues while holding an automatic rifle to show just how serious he is about resisting the unrest increasingly at the gates of his residence. But yesterday, he showed the first signs he might be willing to compromise as both domestic and international pressures grow toward holding a fresh election. All righty. China and India are exchanging fire for the first time in 45 years. Each side is blaming the other for the latest clash. So this is a multi-decade high point. Troops on both sides exchanged fire along the disputed border in Kashmir. Both sides are blaming the other for provocations and said they only fired warning shots. There was fighting along the border back in mid-June with troops on both sides using metal bats to beat one another to death, and officials proudly assuring there was no gunfire. Today's gunfire is the first confirmed shots fired since 1975. All righty. Right now, 3 more Iranian tankers are underway with fuel for Venezuela. Analysts with tankertrackers.com have tentatively identified a new round of Iranian gasoline shipments to Venezuela. According to the firm, the product tankers Forest, Faxon, and Fortune appear to have taken on about 825,000 barrels of gasoline at Port Said Raja'i, then turned off their AIS transponders. None have broadcast an AIS position since the end of August, according to consultancy Dryad Global. TankerTrackers.com believes these vessels are very likely headed for Suez, then Venezuela, marking the second time this year that Iranian-flagged vessels have carried gasoline cargoes on this route. All righty. There is a new report out by Brown University that has found at least 37 million people have been displaced by America's 2-decade war on terror. 30-page report by the university's Costs of War Project on Tuesday claimed 37 million people, mostly civilians, had been displaced from Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, the Philippines, Libya, and Syria, countries largely targeted by America's 2-decade war on terror. The study said the scale of displacement across the 8 countries surveyed likely reaches levels only seen in the Second World War. Okay, China's had a bit of a whoopsie. They were trying to use a Long March 4B rocket to launch an Earth observation satellite into orbit, and it basically exploded, and the booster's return was not so successful. It almost hit a school. You know, there's no royal road to space here. All right, let's talk about the economic news for a little bit here. 1,000 Americans are moving to Florida every single day as families abandon the northern cities in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, with home sales more than doubling in the Sunshine State. And Florida has seen unprecedented demand and an uptick in luxury home sales as people in northern states flee large cities amid the pandemic for more space on sunnier shores. Also, they're going to the Caribbean ahead of the election. We're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We have a special promotion going on at Republic Broadcasting. This is a fundraiser for Republic Broadcasting involving the Energy Cleaner. Mail me a postcard. My address is at my website at thelibertyman.com. We pick a postcard every other Thursday. When your postcard is drawn out, you get to buy an Energy Cleaner for $215 instead of $285, $70 discount. $200 goes to Republic Broadcasting. You also get a 10% discount on my mattress pads. So get those postcards in, put your name, your telephone number, your email address on there, and when your postcard is drawn, you get to get an Energy Cleaner for $215 instead of $285. Mattress pads, 10% off. Help us out at Republic Broadcasting and help yourself to get an Energy Cleaner at a deep discount. It's a win-win situation for everybody. We hope you can get these postcards in soon. Thank you very much.
Hey, honey, I'm home. I grabbed the newspaper on the way home. Look at all the news today.
The newspaper? Don't you know that all you're going to get in the newspaper is propaganda, twisted news, and false information?
Honey, this is a national newspaper. It has to be true.
Ha! For some reason, a majority of the population believe anything the mainstream media tells them. The newspaper does not give out the important attention on what's happening to this country and news that affects our daily lives. Say, does that newspaper mention anything about the North American Union?
No, not that I can see.
I didn't think so. You need to go to www.newswithviews.com, where truth is more important than political correctness. That's www.newswithviews.com. Hey, don't throw that away. We can use that in the birdcage.
Okay, move over. Let me start reading newswithviews.com.
The truth? Read all about it at newswithviews.com. Newswithviews.com, where reality shatters illusion.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And welcome back to our show here. We're talking about the economic news, and they had a moderately decent day on the stock market today. The Dow ending about 400 points up. It did hit over 500 earlier in the day, but there was a last-minute sell-off, if you were, but still ended very much in the green. Okay, Elon Musk loses a record $16.3 billion in just one day amid the rout in U.S. technology stocks, which saw shares in electric car firm Tesla plunge 21%. And apparently Tesla was also snubbed for inclusion in the S&P 500 index. Now, one of the things that may be driving the Tesla's stock down is a report out of Consumer Reports. And they're saying that Tesla's full self-driving system, which is an $8,000 add-on per vehicle, doesn't really work. According to experts at Consumer Reports, it's basically a scam. Now, while admittedly still in the beta phase of its rollout, Tesla's full self-driving technology is flawed at best. At worst, it could land you in a ditch or T-boned into another vehicle. So I wouldn't want one of those on my car anyway. I prefer driving myself here. Steve Mnuchin is saying Nancy Pelosi is still refusing to negotiate a new stimulus package that includes $1,200 checks, but says she has agreed to fund the government to avoid a shutdown. Last I heard, the Republicans had scaled down their coronavirus bill. The Democrats are still holding firm on it. Middle Eastern countries are preparing to decouple from the petrodollar. That is going to put more downward pressure on that dollar. And over at Boeing, those poor people at Boeing, how the mighty have fallen, I guess is the only way I could say it. Hundreds of Boeing Dreamliners face an inspection by the FAA after a defect grounds at least 8 787 jets in the latest setback for the aircraft maker after 2 deadly crashes. The Federal Aviation Administration is considering inspections that would cover hundreds of Boeing Company's Dreamliners after production issues at one plant. United Airlines will furlough thousands of employees in October, and they're going to lay off more than 16,000 workers in October, part of airline industry layoffs that could put more than 35,000 people out of work. Okay. Now, here's an interesting little story. The New Jersey Turnpike Authority removes American flags put up to honor the 9/11 victims from highways. This triggered a huge backlash. And as of the last word, the New Jersey Turnpike Authority has reversed that decision, and those flags will be going back up. All righty. A Miami high school junior is arrested over a wave of cyber attacks on the county's public schools computer network, which left students and teachers unable to access virtual learning setup for the start of the school years. Okay. Over in Chicago, cops are asking Google for details of all smartphones in a 100-yard radius of a crime scene, but judges say police cannot use geofencing data to rummage where they please. So the fight for privacy continues there. All right. France, Japan, and New Zealand warn of a sudden spike in Emotet attacks. Cybersecurity agencies from these 3 countries have published security alerts over the past week, warning about a large uptick in Emotet malware attacks targeting their respective countries. Okay, Emotet activity described in the alerts refers to an email spam campaign that originated from Emotet infrastructure and targeted companies and government agencies in the 3 countries. Victim organizations who received the emails, opened and then ran the attached documents were at risk of getting infected with one of today's most dangerous pieces of malware. You should never open an attachment that comes from somebody you don't personally know. Joseph Ruzin, a member of Cryptolaemus, a group of security researchers who tracked Emotet malware campaigns, told ZDNet that the Emotet botnet has been particularly active in recent weeks and especially active in the 3 countries. Okay, cyber attacks during the Russian nationwide vote on the constitutional amendments were detected coming from the US, the UK, Ukrainian territory, and a number of CIS states. Special representative of the President of the Russian Federation for International Cooperation in Information Security, Andrei Krutchik, told the OSCE conference on cybersecurity on Monday. And there is a real spike in ransomware, something along the order of like 700%. Huge rise in attacks this year. And apparently there's been a huge increase over the course of 2020 with a 7-fold rise in campaigns compared to just last year alone, according to newly released data from cybersecurity researchers. Ransomware attacks have been on the rise and getting more dangerous in recent years, with cyber criminals aiming to encrypt as much of a corporate network as possible in order to extort a Bitcoin ransom in return for restoring it. A single attack can result in cyber criminals making hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the phone lines here up until the top of the hour when Richard Gage is going to be joining us here. Now, you've probably seen all these commercials for these meat substitute burgers that are coming from some of the fast food restaurants here. But interestingly enough, 3/4 of the supposedly environmentally friendly Generation Z are disgusted by lab-grown meat and say they would not eat it. Out in California, where they're dealing with all these wildfires here, Californians are spending up to $69,000 to buy their own fire trucks on Craigslist to protect themselves against the blazes that are scorching the state. Now, Kamala Harris is out there pushing to make the rolling blackouts taking place in California a standard for the nation. That's her idea of a solution. Let's not build up our power grid again. Let's just tell everybody that they're going to have to live without electricity for so many hours every day. I mean, that's like what people in Gaza are having to deal with. And that's what Kamala Harris is holding up as an ideal. Now, Trump's Department of Energy authorizes a federal intervention of California's power grid, which they're saying may fail completely. They haven't been keeping it up with the population growth. Now, state officials confirmed the El Dorado fire of 7,050 acres was started by fireworks at a gender reveal party. And the family behind this gender reveal party that sparked the El Dorado wildfire could face the entire bill of putting the blaze out. Governor Newsom has declared a state of emergency. And by the way, the person who came up with gender reveal parties is saying maybe it's not a really good idea to be doing that right now. All right, let's talk a little bit about the climate. One of the earliest snowstorms on record to blanket front ranges of Rockies with September snow, including Denver. Denver just had the weirdest thing happen. They went from like triple-digit temperatures in one day to a winter storm warning the next. The jet stream is shifting southward, and apparently it's bringing a lot of very, very cold air down with it. So Denver's under a winter weather advisory 2 days after the city hit 101 degrees. They're under hard freeze warnings now, and temperatures could plunge as much as 60 degrees. Now, speaking of ClimateGate and the environmentalists, there's a new study out that shows the world's oceans soak up to 900 million tons of CO2 a year more than previously thought, the amount emitted by 2.2 billion petrol cars. So again, they were doing this whole CO2 is destroying the environment, and they didn't really have the numbers about where it was coming from and, more importantly, where it was going. But according to a new study, the world's oceans are better at soaking up carbon dioxide than most scientific models have previously found. Due to previous oversight, the oceans may actually soak up to an extra 0.9 petagrams of CO2, the same as 900 million metric tons. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a phone call from Steve Elkins. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, you mentioned Elizabeth Warren's comment about cutting back on our electricity instead of building up the power grid.
That's Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, sorry. That came to mind is actually in Agenda 2030, the sustainability. Anytime you hear sustainability, that means get ready and get used to doing without, minimizing. And so when she mentioned that right there, it just first thing that came to mind was Agenda 2030 and sustainability. Anytime you hear sustainability, that means you're going to have to get used to living without.
Yes.
And that's the first thing came to mind. That's about it. So I wanted people to think about that a little bit. Agenda 2030, sustainability, and her comment. That's about it, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks an awful lot here. Okay, we've been talking for a long time about colony collapse disorder, which is the destruction of honeybees, which are necessary pollinators for a lot of our food crops here. And apparently the relative abundance of bumblebees in North America is estimated to have crashed by 97%. That is a very, very serious number. And apparently up in British Columbia, they're being particularly hard hit. About $370 million industry up there. They depend on bees, butterflies, moths, and other pollinators for a successful harvest. Pollination's always been a struggle, said Jack Bates, who owns a 90-acre blueberry farm. Now, pollinators are in rough shape here, and the blame is being passed around. They tried to blame cell towers on it. Personally, I think it's GMO pollen. And it's based on a article some years back in Nature magazine, which showed that GMO pollen was actually harmful to benign insect species. In the case of this article, it was butterflies. And we know the monarch butterfly, really suffered a major population drop for a while. They're starting to come back here. But it may be that GMO pollen has something to do with this. Okay, we're going to take another phone call from Dan in Washington State. Hello, Dan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking the call. couldn't say this, and the show ended yesterday. I just want to say I was using my company as a marker for the coronavirus. We have about 6,000 employees.
Mm-hmm.
And last I heard, we had 12 confirmed positives. And one guy did die, but he was about 76. So, that's not that bad of a ratio. So I do kind of, my gut's telling me this could be like a pre-prep for a big virus, like some kind of population reduction program or something. But it's not a serious virus, and I think so. I'm done with the fraud now. I think it's totally pretty much a fraud, and I've studied a little bit of this president in Belarus, and he seems like a good guy. He's doing what his people want. And it just shows you that I mean, America's not really on the right side of a lot of these issues. I mean, a guy like Belarus becomes our enemy, and then you got a country like Australia where they're going around arresting people for posting stuff on Facebook and creating like a tyranny, So the Belarus thing was the final thing in my mind that said this is like a bigger NATO operation or some kind of thing like that.
Okay.
Isn't that a good? So that's all I got.
All right, Dan. Well, thanks an awful lot.
What do you think about Belarus, though? Do you think he's a pretty good guy generally, or?
I really don't know whether he's a good guy or not. Frankly, I think the accusations of a rigged election have merit and should be investigated. My problem is, of course, that the United States is throwing its hegemonic muscle all over the planet, and it's just building hostility in all the other countries against us.
Yeah, I agree. And even England comes out, and they just kind of, it's obviously political. They got troops in Poland, and now they're putting them on Belarus's border. So it's basically a replay of Ukraine is what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. And phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Now, interestingly enough, among the crew on the International Space Station is a number of what are called mighty mice, which are experimental subjects showing how a simple injection could stop the loss of muscle and bone during spaceflight for long-term missions to, for example, Mars. And the U.S. scientists sent muscular mice to the ISS to expose them to microgravity. So that would be good, because that really is a problem when you're in space for a very, very long time. It does lead to atrophying of your muscles and your bones, and returning to Earth can be very, very difficult if you've been up there for a while here. All right, somebody did a simulation on the Cascadia subduction zone fault and determined that if there was, in fact, an earthquake of the magnitude they're expecting there, Seattle would be hit by a giant tsunami 2 hours and 20 minutes after the quake actually happened. All right, we're going to take another phone call from Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, what's going on with Belarus and these so-called exercises in Georgia and stuff just shows that if Trump means what he says about taking on a military-industrial complex, he's not doing a very good job of it. As far as Belarus goes, Lukashenko, to me, is a hero. The man is anybody who takes on this globalist New World Order, and the fact that the International Monetary Fund, or like Gerald Celente calls the International Mafia Fund, doesn't like the fact that he has locked down and gone all the other garbage with the masks and all that, tells me pretty much all I got to know, to not only what's going on with Belarus, but what's going on as a whole with this, again, with this phony coronavirus that's going on. Now, it shows you there's no question, even if there is such a thing, let's say there is, it's not anything like I said, it's not anything major like they're trying to make out to be. But they're using it to try basically to get total control. And that's why I get so angry at a guy like Dustin, because, he's contributing to destroying our freedom. And he was actually defending Bill Gates yesterday. So I mean, I can't. That's unacceptable. That's why I have to take him on. That's why I have to confront him every time he comes on this show and starts talking this nonsense about how good the masks are, which they aren't. I don't know if what he thinks of the vaccines, but if he thinks Gates is okay, he probably thinks these vaccines are okay. By the way, I just was shopping at a supermarket before, and there's a Walgreens there, and they're advertising flu shots. So I went over to the counter and says, "Can I get an inset for your flu shot?" So first they thought I was wanting to take the shot, so he gave me some form there. I said, "No, I don't want to take the shot. I never take any flu. I just want to see the inset for some people I know." And they gave it to me, and I just took pictures of it just a couple of minutes ago and posted it on Facebook. So I mean, and you can see the side effects are very serious flu shots. Very serious.
Yeah, they are.
They
are. Okay, Mark, we got to let you go. Sorry about that. Got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. Back with another phone call after these few words.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, keep it today.
Is your property a financial burden and causing you grief? Have you tried to sell but can't find buyers? Or are you just too busy to sell your property? Don't worry, we have the right solution for you. We buy properties as is, with cash, close in 30 days, and pay all closing costs. Our service is ideal for property owners who are in pre-foreclosure, have high-end repair costs, experiencing financial hardship, going through costly divorces, are relocating, need cash for retirement, suffering family loss, or have tax liens. Whatever your situation may be, we can help you sell your property and get the money you need. If you own a single-family home or multiple family units, call us for a free consultation at 888-910-1037. That's 888-910-1037. Or visit our website at cashingproperty.com. That's cashingproperty.com. Sell your property fast and leave all your worries behind.
Hear ye, ConstitutionOnTrial.com presents the most important question for our generation. Is the United States Constitution biblical? Witness the prosecution and defense of the United States Constitution on trial, live and unscripted at the Maranatha Retreat Center in Everton, Missouri, and streamed live on YouTube. For the prosecution, Ted Weiland, pastor, Bible teacher, and author of Bible Law versus the United States Constitution, The Christian Perspective. Versus for the defense, Brent Allen Winters, a practicing lawyer and author of Excellence of Common Law in Light of History, Nature, and Scripture. Is the United States Constitution biblical? Live and unscripted at the Maranatha Retreat Center in Everton, Missouri, and live streamed on YouTube. Saturday, September 19th from 6:30 till 9:30 p.m. Come one, come all. This most important event is free to attend and streamed live on YouTube. Go to ConstitutionOnTrial.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Gary in Dallas. Hello, Gary. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. Looking forward to Richard Gage.
Me too.
Just wanted to ask you if you're going to get an opportunity to get them to talk more about the Alaska study, where they're going with that. Build the momentum, that kind of thing. And then, how it is out there in the world. It's very contentious. A guy like Ryan Dawson goes and, kind of slanders Richard Gage and puts him down, and actually kind of sucks up to this Mick West guy. I guess he's a bunker, and they're like poo-pooing the whole thing, and it's a little frustrating.
Well,
Ryan's obviously a very intelligent guy, and
yes, he is.
I look to him as an ally, but he just I don't know. I think he's got ego problems, but I'm just curious on
Don't we all?
Yeah, true. So, just any comments at all? Do you know if Ryan and Richard ever talk or anything, or?
I have no idea, and I mean, at this point in the game, Ryan and I don't talk anymore either. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, from that incident a couple of months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, from that incident.
That sort of thing. He's a very talented guy. He's maybe he's just young.
Yeah, he's certainly younger than I am.
Yeah.
But you're all younger than I am, so.
No, I don't know. I'm a senior citizen.
Well, thanks for the phone call. We're going to let you go and try and fit in a couple more here. And apparently Facebook is having a huge outage right now. Downdetector.com is confirming it. So I don't know, maybe Mark Zuckerberg made a mistake in trying to impose more censorship. He censored his entire system now. Let's go to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. First of all, I wanted to say, about a week or so back, we all wanted to wish you happy birthday, and the same stuff was going on with the network connection or whatever. So anyway, happy belated birthday. I hope you had a great one.
I did, actually.
Well, that's awesome. You needed it. You needed something, good for you to go on. But, I wanted to bring something up about, I read something, some report, and you might be able to reflect on it, but it said they consider, and I know this is something you and the lovely lady Clara are advocates from, although you say that you're not really a Christian, but I don't know many people that follow the morals of Christianity more than you guys, and one of them is this what I'm about to mention.
Well, Claire is very Christian. She's very active in her local church. In fact, they're getting ready to perform one of her original works.
Oh, that's going to be awesome. But,
yes.
You always claim that, you're not a Christian, but everything I hear you do, I mean, you go out, take of yourself, feed the hungry, the less fortunate. I mean, those are all things that the Bible would, implore as
well, I just agree. I think they were a good idea. All right, listen, we got to let you go. We got to take a break here for station identification. My apologies to the callers waiting on hold. We're going to be closing the lines for the Richard Gage, and we'll be back after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And welcome back to our show, hour number 2. We're still waiting to connect with Richard Gage of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. Friday, of course, is the 19th anniversary of that false flag. Oh, and he's joining us on the air now. Richard Gage of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. And I imagine with the 19th anniversary coming up, you must be very busy. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend with us today.
Oh, Michael, it's my honor. It's awesome to talk to you again.
Yes, it's been, 9 years since that New York thing that we did.
I remember it like it was yesterday. That was fun.
Anyway, what's going on with Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth?
We're still talking to the public, the media, the government, officials, really anyone who will listen, architects and engineers particularly. We have a lot of work and a lot of things going on. It's incredible. And for those of your listeners who might be new today to your show and may not have heard you even yet talk about the towers, I want people to understand why it is and what we're talking about and why. And so we have 3,000 architects and engineers signed on to our petition calling for a new investigation of the destruction of these towers for a reason. And one of those reasons is that most of us didn't know that a third tower came down on 9/11. And that, of course, is Building 7, the smoking gun of 9/11. And here's a 47-story skyscraper that on the afternoon of 9/11, about 7 hours after the Twin Towers came down, after witnesses hear explosions, this building drops like a rock uniformly, symmetrically, suddenly, into its own footprint in under 7 seconds. Now that's at free fall. This is for a third of its 7-second fall. And so this is an extraordinary thing because that means not one of those 80 columns gave any resistance to this building's collapse because all that energy is converted into kinetic energy, which is motion. So this is what raises the attention all across the country in conferences that we do, because most architects and engineers are completely unaware of this, the third worst structural failure in modern history. It's absolutely, it should be the most studied building failure. Why? Because NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, it was asked to explain these to people 7 years after 9/11 came out with their final report saying, well, normal office fires brought this building down. Wait a minute. Normal office fires have never brought down a skyscraper, not before 9/11. And we have 3 on 9/11. So this is an incredible opportunity to wake people up because, they're not psychologically traumatized by the loss of life in the Twin Towers when they came down. So we start with Building 7 because it's a clear-cut case, just looks like the old hotels in Las Vegas exactly, of controlled demolition.
Yes.
So that's where we start with. And now they know, at least part of what we're talking about, Michael.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, a lot of people, I mean, even controlled demolition experts have looked at Building 7 coming down and saying, yeah, that's a controlled demolition. There's no doubt about it. An examination of the load-bearing members clearly shows the scars from the diagonal cutter charges that are used to walk the beams off of each other. And we've illustrated that at whatreallyhappened.com. We're going to be talking about 9/11, obviously, a lot on Friday here. We had a caller call in earlier asking about the Alaska study. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, this is a major university study from Fairbanks, University of Alaska. One of the top forensic structural engineers in the country, Professor Leroy Halsey, and his team of PhD researchers spent the last 4 years looking at this puzzling collapse. And because they said, gosh, if fire did this, then as NIST claims, then we've got a real problem here. There's hundreds of similarly designed buildings out there. What are we going to do? So that's what convinced him to really take a look at it. And he got more surprised and surprised as he got deeper into it, ultimately concluding that in these analyses that use NIST's own assumptions, and these are fraudulent assumptions that they found, they used them nevertheless because they were the most conservative assumptions. You omit key structural components, as NIST did, to try to make that collapse believable as a fire, even though it even then was never ever anywhere near believable. Their collapse in theory, but the university used that information, and what did they do? They couldn't get the building to collapse even with NIST's own input data, and they then said, well, okay, let's take out 3 columns, number 79, 80, and 81, as NIST claims were the first 3 to fail. Let's see what happens then. Well, by God, the building tips over like you'd expect if 3 columns in its northeast corner were taken out. Go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you. Something that's important to remember, though, is that Building 7, because it housed government offices, was built more fire resistant and more bomb proof than your average New York skyscraper.
Yes, there was the bunker on the 23rd floor of this building. That was an incredible upgrade. And this building in and of itself, the floor plates are the size of a football field. It's an extraordinarily large building, and this column that they claim was taken out, it was built up out of steel pieces. 750 pounds every foot of that column number 79 at this particular floor, anyways, floor 12. See, they claim that expanding beams due to the fires, which were actually burned out in this area, pushed this girder off of its seat on this column 79. Now, the University of Alaska found that none of that could be true. First of all, these beams are fireproofed. They wouldn't have expanded. And they found that NIST had put all the heat, 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit, into that beam in just a second and a half, which would have forced it to expand instead of sag, which is what beams normally do in temperatures exceeding 1,200 degrees. Anyway, they found that they lied about that. They lied about the shear studs ripping out between those expanding beams and the concrete floor up above. They found that they lied about the girder being able to be pushed off of its seat because of 3 reasons. One, there were shear studs for the shop drawings on that girder also. It couldn't have been pushed off of its seat. 2, it had steel stiffeners at the end of the beam, which would have required the whole beam to be pushed off 12 inches all the way off of its seat instead of just halfway off of its seat, as NIST claims, because these I-beams, they say the flange folded after it got pushed halfway off of its seat. Mm-hmm. And 3, the girder would have expanded along with the other beams, and as it expanded linearly, it would have been then trapped between the 2 additional side plates that were manufactured onto this standard wide flange column. So it would have been trapped, and it couldn't have been pushed off for that reason either. And then they found that even if it were pushed off, the floor 13 couldn't have fallen on 12 after 9 floors of progressive collapse. They say column 79 broke, and then floor 13 fell on 12, and 12 on 10, so on for 9 floors. But for floor 13 to break the steel connections on the floor below it would have required 632,000 pounds, and it didn't have dynamic force. It didn't even have a tenth of that. So they have exposed NIST 6 ways from Sunday. And now what did they conclude finally in this 4-year-long finite element analysis computer modeling study? They found that in order for the building to have fallen the way that we see it did in the videos, all 80 columns in this building would have to have been removed all at once.
Yes.
Exterior columns followed a second or so later by the interior columns. Now, what can do that? This is a global collapse, they're saying, not a sequential failure as NIST claimed with a series of progressive failures. And only controlled demolition, can take all the columns out of the building. That's exactly what they do, in fact. That's how they bring the building down, in a controlled fashion, and often at free fall acceleration. So this is an extraordinary study. We're sending 400 copies of this 130-page document to engineers and universities around the world. We're talking to chapters of the American Society of Civil Engineers, trying to bring presenters, and we've got 30 presentations already made. So we're with this project due diligence. And so that's our current effort to reach engineers with this. We've sent 75,000 postcards to engineers all around the country. Very exciting opportunities here to get the word out with the study.
Well, I'd like to share a little insight with you from my background in film, because I've worked with a lot of fire. Very early in my career, I had a powderman's license. And the one thing that looks obvious to me when you look at the fires in building number 7 is they're basically set by the windows, which is what you would do on a movie set, because you don't want to really burn the set down. And there's no hot inner glow visible through the windows that would be the normal case if you really had a massive raging fire in there. Plus the fact that steel, office fires with paper and whatnot just don't burn that hot.
No, I mean, most office fires don't get over 500 degrees. NIST claimed 1,400 degrees here without any evidence to back that up. So they have, so we have submitted to NIST a request for correction. It's a 135-page document. No, this one's 99 pages. And it went to NIST, and they have responded. What we did is pick the 8 key vulnerabilities in their report, their final report on Building 7, backed up by the work of this study, which is the University of Alaska. And many of the key things, in addition to those key things we've already mentioned, actually, there's the seismic data, which shows that they claim that the seismic event that occurred or was picked up 20 miles north was a result of the building collapsing. Well, unfortunately for NIST, it was 10 seconds before the building collapsed. So they write back and say, well, yeah, but we think that's because the interior of the building collapsed first and then the exterior. Well, wait a minute. If the interior of a steel frame moment resisting building was going to collapse, it would pull in the exterior. You'd have like a crumpled beer can on the exterior, massive breaking up of granite panels and windows and so forth. So no, it couldn't possibly be that. Anyway, so we pointed that out in item number F here. And then the eyewitnesses and audio evidence of explosions occurring before the building
Yeah.
came down in Building 7. There's lots of evidence of that. And then, of course, the information that NIST completely omitted in their original report, which was very well documented by FEMA before them, when their building performance assessment report came out in May of 2002, they included in Appendix C the hot temperature corrosion attack on the steel. This is a whole metallurgical examination of the steel from World Trade Center 7 and the Twin Towers. And they find liquid molten iron and sulfur invading the grain boundaries of the steel. The author of this report, Jonathan Barnett, says the ends of the steel beams were partly evaporated in extraordinarily high temperatures. Well, all of it requires temperatures exceeding 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit, which is more than twice what NIST said the temperatures there were. So what does NIST do about this? They completely eliminate Appendix C from their report when they took over the investigation from FEMA. I mean, this is the kind of work they do, and we tried to call them all on all of this fraud with the request for correction, which you can do with federal agencies that act like this under the Data Quality Act. Well, they finally responded, and they gave us the most cursory, egregious, actually, non-responses to the point-by-point analysis that we did. And they are required by law, by this Data Quality Act, which is congressional law, to respond point by point, and they didn't do that. And so we've got them. We're appealing, and then we'll be providing a lawsuit to follow that up. So that's going to be covered also in the very exciting online conference called Justice Rising that we are doing this September 11th online, because we can't get venues anywhere. So this year, that gives us an opportunity to bring together some incredible speakers who we couldn't otherwise. For instance, David Ray Griffin, who hasn't spoken in years in public, and Stephen Jones and Niels Harrit. These gentlemen are the pioneers of the truth movement that we've been trying to push forward, for 14 years now. For me, longer for you, right, Michael?
Yes, it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, it all begins on September 11th, Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. And I'll be talking about the history of AE 9/11 Truth and how far we've come since the beginning and where we think we're heading. We have Matt Campbell also, who will be taking this evidence to the UK, putting our technical evidence, forensic evidence, into the court system to get a new inquest into his brother's death.
Yes.
His brother Jeff was murdered in the North Tower, and along with 3,000 others, and we're hoping will join in as this legal effort gets attention. See, this is a tailor-made opportunity legally for us to get our evidence successfully into an international court system, in this case, the UK, and there get a new inquest, because the threshold for requiring a new inquest is only that you have to prove that it might result in a different outcome from the original inquest, which said or claimed that planes and fires brought down these towers, and that's what killed his brother and all those other people. By the way,
while you're at it, while you're in Britain, ask the BBC how it was that they reported on the collapse of Building 7 while it was still standing behind their reporter.
Yeah, that's really cute, and it's absolutely true. 5 o'clock, 20 minutes before the collapse of Building 7, Jane Stanley is saying, yeah, well, as you already know, because they not only gave the announcement of the building's collapse, but the reason for its collapse, and it hadn't even collapsed yet. That is really good reporting. What are they, psychic?
Miss Cleo must have been working for them.
They apologize for the.
Well, you know what was really interesting? We're coming up
What's
on a
that?
break here. What was really interesting is BBC claims they've thrown away all the original tape from that day, which is ridiculous. If you know anything about TV news, original tape you keep because you can make more money off of it, licensing it in the future. But BBC simply said, we can't figure out what happened because we threw it all away.
I've heard that before too, haven't I?
Yes, we have. All right, Richard, we got to take a break here. And we'll be back with Richard Gage from Architects and Engineers of 9/11 Truth right after these two words.
What would you say if I told you we have a new tool that will increase production and lower maintenance costs for your meat processing company? And it would pay for itself in just 6 weeks.
When pigs fly!
The new Ease Off Model Easy 4 replaces old spring-style carcass droppers and is faster, safer, and more reliable. The Ease Off lowers or lifts 1,000 pounds to or from your rail automatically using our remote control.
Sounds expensive. Can I afford it?
Can you afford not to try the Ease Off? It installs fast with just 3 bolts in place of your current dropper. The effortless operation will reduce fatigue and injuries, speed up your line, eliminate downtime, and increase profit.
How can I order my Ease Off?
Go to easeoff.com, EAZEOFF.com, and hurry because we are offering $200 off on the new Easy 4 for a limited time. Easeoff.com. We make pigs fly. Cows too. Ease Off LLC, Summersville, Missouri, 417-932-6419.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting Truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Richard Gage from Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. And you were telling us about this upcoming event you have Friday evening. And I'd also like you to make sure that you tell our listeners how they can tune in.
Yeah, this is a 3-day online conference, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. It is free, and people can come to ae911truth.org. That's ae911truth.org, and just watch it right on the front page or near the front page of our website. And we're going to be having a detailed discussion on the request for correction that we talked about earlier,
Yes.
also on Friday night. And then we're going to have the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry, which is Dave Meiswinkle, Mick Harrison, Barbara Honegger, all of the legal efforts that we've been making together with them. And they've got some more new efforts, including a grand jury petition for the anthrax investigation, which of course went amok with the FBI falsely
Yes.
accusing Bruce Ivins and so forth. Well, that all is part of the 9/11 conspiracy. Well, then we come back Saturday, and Dylan Avery of Loose Change 9/11 fame, who's won several awards since then, is on with us because he's made a new film about this finite element analysis and the story behind it. And Leroy Halsey, the professor who led it, Professor Halsey will be there also on Saturday. And this is 3 p.m. Pacific, starts in the afternoon on Saturday. And then we go into the evidence in Building 7 and the Twin Towers in some detail at 4 Eastern. And 5 Eastern, we bring out David Ray Griffin, Niels Harrit, Stephen Jones. Of course, Niels Harrit brought out was a lead author on the nanothermite paper, active thermitic materials in the World Trade Center dust. And then Stephen Jones documented the extreme temperatures,
Yes.
evidence of extreme temperatures, including molten iron microspheres found in all the World Trade Center dust. These guys we have not seen or heard from very much. We're very excited to bring them out and reflect on their experiences and give us advice for the future as well. Sunday, we come back in the evening at 6 p.m. Eastern with Daniela Ganzer, who's an expert on false flags and war of terror as a result of 9/11. And then we turn it over to John Whitehead at 7 p.m. from the Rutherford Institute, a constitutional attorney who is an expert on 9/11 and the advancing police state. See, our freedoms have been just eroded, taken away from us. It's been a controlled demolition of our Constitution since 9/11. And now with this new 9/11 that we're experiencing today inside of our homes under lock, we have much further eroding, and that's only begin on the way. So we're hoping people will tie these things together. The incredible censorship that we've experienced with 9/11 and COVID-19, just on an incredible scale, is what James Corbett is going to finish the whole conference off with this talk. The Library of Alexandria is on fire. Internet censorship from 9/11 to today. Of course, Alexandria, Egypt, the burning of the world's knowledge of wisdom from that library, an incredible loss to humanity there.
Yes.
That's
okay, Richard, we seem to be breaking up a little bit. Are you still there?
No, I wasn't speaking. I was waiting for you.
Okay. Well, we've been having some chop coming through on the Skype link, and I don't know if it's somebody trying to deliberately interfere with us or it's just Skype being Skype. So people just need to go to ae911truth.org, and they'll be able to tune in to this 3-day seminar, if you will. Now, I had somebody write on in and ask if you knew anything about the Dakota Report.
I don't. What's that?
They didn't tell me. They just asked me to ask you. Anyway,
okay.
Yeah, the evidence that we've seen about the use of thermite as the cutter charges, and again, getting on back to the photograph showing diagonal demolition cuts on the load-bearing members of Building 7, and for that matter, the towers. There's a great deal of molten iron dribbling down from it, which is a dead giveaway that thermite was used to basically cut those load-bearing members all at once. So we're coming up here on another break, and When we come on back, we're going to open the phone lines for questions for you, Richard, regarding 9/11 and Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. So brace yourself, because some of our callers can be a little bit aggressive. And we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors. So stay tuned. And here we go.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
After about a month of Extendovite, I don't know what it is about the circulation factor. I was able to increase the weight, increase the amount of sets I could do. It has to do with the oxygen getting to the blood. You should market this as an athletic performance. And I don't change anything about my diet or anything. I just thought, this is amazing. Bilberry extract is got something called resveratrol in it, which is the same stuff that you get from red wine. It's also good for eyesight. And I was reading that the Royal Air Force during World War II would give their pilots bilberry jam so they could have better night vision stuff. This is amazing.
To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit our website at heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Hey gang, Patrick Slattery here with an important message that is pertinent to anyone who shops for groceries, eats food, or just has an inquisitive mind like myself. What I'm about to introduce you to is a segment of our food culture that has been kept so low profile to the American public that virtually no one is aware of how dominant it is on our refrigerator and cupboard shelves. What I'm talking about is the kosher certification industry and the new app, Koshertified, that delivers a comprehensive education on all aspects regarding this little-known practice. After reviewing this app, I found that it is useful for practically anyone who purchases food, regardless of their religious faith or identity. Its database of products not kosher certified is a win-win convenience for all food-conscious people. So why not check out the kosherquestion.com or click on the link at nationalbugle.com and see how modifying your grocery shopping with the Koshertified app can make a huge difference for your future.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Richard Gage of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. And Richard, take a deep breath, because the phone lines are jammed with people who want to ask you questions.
Oh.
And we're going to start with Peter in Los Angeles. Peter, do you have a question for Richard?
Do. Richard, I wish you would speak briefly on
the Israeli connection, what with the dancing Israelis, urban moving systems, Silverstein, Daniel Lewin, the Sayeret Matkal commando, who was on one of the planes, the art students that followed the hijackers around. I'd appreciate if you could go into some detail on it. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a very important part of the story, and it's one that architects and engineers are not qualified to research. Having said that, there are others who have done this research, and I refer not you, because you seem to have done it as well, but everybody else to the work of Christopher Bolin,
yes,
who's written a book called Solving 9/11. And he does go into these issues in some detail and does a great job. So I would be, we've got to draw the line somewhere. So as architects and engineers, it's great to draw that at the edge of our technical credibility.
Okay, well, thank you for the call, Peter. And we're going to switch to Dan in Washington State. Hello, Dan. Do you have a question for Richard?
Yeah, thank you. Two questions. So you think it was the nanothermite? Is that like clay, right? And I've seen a video on it. They can just wrap it around a beam at an angle.
Well, no.
At an angle.
Yeah, let's unpack that. It's not what I think. It's what the evidence shows that we want to be talking about, and the evidence shows a number of elements that support the hypothesis of controlled demolition with incendiaries, specifically thermite and nanothermite. Regarding nanothermite, the evidence is very clear in the finding of 7 independently collected samples of dust, and those being given to this team of 8 international scientists from led by Niels Harrit in Copenhagen. Niels will be one of our speakers on I think it's Saturday, and which you can watch, by the way, at our website, ae911truth.org. Now, what they found in all the samples is these red-gray chips, red on one side, gray on the other. The red side is, and that indicates, by the way, that it was fluid applied rather than a clay, as you mentioned. So were these applied to the underside of the decking and beams in a sprayed-on application, perhaps under the guise of a fireproofing upgrade? It's entirely possible, because in fact the 5 or 6 floors above and below the point of jet plane impacts in each of the twin towers, and these are different impacts points, 15 stories down in the North Tower, 30 stories down in the South Tower. What they find when they heat these up in a heater, a differential scanning calorimeter, they find that they ignite at about 750 degrees, this red side. The red-gray chips, and they produce iron microspheres when they are ignited, indicating that it's thermitic material, active thermitic material, thermite. So this is direct evidence in and of itself for thermite, but when they zoom in 50,000 times with a nuclear microscope, they find inside this red layer these extremely small particles at the nanoscale, 1,000 times smaller in the diameter of a human hair, of rhomboidal-shaped iron oxide crystals and aluminum platelets, the ingredients of thermite. So these are not paint chips. This is extremely sophisticated nanoscale thermite, and it's set in a bed of oxygen silica carbon, which is an organic material used in the TNT for concussive force or expansion of gases very, very rapidly. So this appears to be a thermite that's been engineered to become more explosive. So this is what is documented in the 25-page peer-reviewed paper that we mentioned earlier, and it stands uncontested. Nobody submitted a peer-reviewed paper challenging the results of this. So that's the evidence we have for.
it always made sense to me because you can see those beams, how they look cut. And I've seen
Yeah.
videos of what thermite does. It just basically liquefies. That I was wondering because there's a guy, Jim Fetzer, that he keeps saying it's mini nukes. And I didn't know there was such a thing as a mini nuke. But I don't know.
And I don't know either. But we don't have the extremely bright flash, brighter than the sun by many times, that associated with nuclear weapons at the World Trade Center. We don't have the extreme radiation levels. We only have some slightly above background radiation levels. We don't have the extremely loud bangs that you'd expect with any kind of a nuclear weapon. So we don't believe that's what's going on there at all. And the evidence clearly shows physical evidence, like I've just described for nanothermite, but there's also evidence of thermite pouring out of the South Tower minutes prior to its collapse. This is molten iron, the byproduct of thermite. We have molten iron, pools of molten iron throughout the World Trade Center, the ends of the beams dripping with molten steel, the laterally freely flying structural steel sections out of the South Tower in every direction, landing 600 feet away, shot out at 80 miles an hour, trailed by thick white smoke clouds. Well, steel is not flammable. So why are the ends of the steel beams burning?
Yep. Okay, that's one more question. I'll hang up. What % of the world's population believes it's basically an inside job? I mean, do you get better? There's been European studies I've heard that have shown that, like you mentioned Copenhagen, and are people in Asia and Europe mostly think it's an inside job? It seems like it's just Americans are kind of in a bubble here, or is there countries like England that's just as much fooled by all this, or I guess, well.
Yeah, I'd say maybe 30% of Americans and Europeans are aware that there's an issue. Maybe half of that amount have formed clear opinion that this is an inside operation of some kind, because let's face it, the controlled demolition of occupied buildings is clearly a conspiracy, an inside operation, and mass murder and treason, which we have all the evidence to bring these perpetrators to justice. We just need a non-corrupt court system, like we're still seeking, in the UK now, which is why we're asking everybody to support the Matt Campbell project, the legal project to get a new inquest at our website, which is again ae911truth.org.
All right,
Okay,
thanks
Dan.
for taking the call.
Yeah, thank you for the phone call, Dan. We're going to switch over to Jim in Michigan. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, thank you for having this great patriot on the air. And maybe your guest knows this, but what I always do, I did a 3-hour series on 9/11 here with a lot of research and stuff. And excuse me, sir, but your research was a lot of part of the show I did. The one thing that I found, as far as trying to get people to think about 9/11 and the conspiracy is going actually to the gentlemen or the men who were actually cleaning up the World Trade Center. And what they said was, when they went there, if you look at the NIST report, they said, well, the floors collapsed on top of another floor and it would pancake down, and that's what they said. And I always ask people, okay, when you pancake floors, what do you find in the rubble? And I would say, you find desks, do you find doors, and every person that I heard, okay, on many, many occasions who were cleaning up the World Trade Center mess, they say, we didn't find a door. We didn't find a computer. We didn't find a file cabinet. The biggest thing we found was a part of a little bit of a phone. So, and the cement was all gone. And Governor George Patry, I think his name was, said, it's amazing. He said, the cement is all disintegrated. It's all over Manhattan. I guess the thing is that how do you collapse a building like NIST says, and there's nothing left? There's not a door. There's not a window. There's not a chair. There's not a file cabinet. There's nothing. How does that happen in a regular collapse? And I might ask, I might say to people, if you want to see the extreme heat of the World Trade Center collapse, there is a video, I don't know if it's still available on YouTube, but it's called Amongst the Rubble. And it's an independent reporter with his cameraman going through the street before Building 7 collapses. And there's buses, cars everywhere. There's nothing flammable on, and all the metal is melted down, collapsed. These are buses and cars and everything, but there's nothing burning because it was all totally evaporated when that cloud came out of the World Trade Center. It burned everything on that street. So it's called Amongst the Rubble. You look at that and you'll find out this may not have been just a regular fire. Anyways, thanks for your work, my friend, and thank you, Michael, and God bless you all.
Well, thank you for the phone call. I'm going to switch over to Don in Arizona. Hello, Don. Welcome to the show. Do you have a question for Richard Gage?
Yes, Richard Gage. This reminds me a lot of, you remind me of Mark Lane, another great American, great writer, great lawyer that kept the John Kennedy assassination thing alive. And you can prove it a million different ways that the government's theory of Lee Harvey Oswald, a lone gunman, is totally impossible. And people don't believe it. The polls show that they don't believe the government story. And yet, it's still the official government story all these years later, 60 years later almost. And I think that it looks the same way with the 9/11. Everybody can tell that those buildings were pancaked, but the government, it seems to me the government will never change their version of it. They just got to go along with their official version. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, Don, thanks an
I
awful lot.
certainly agree with you. And the media is not doing their job, of course. Well, who owns the media? The media is there's only 5 corporations that control all of the mainstream media. And who sits on the boards of those directors of those corporations? The same individuals, it's been found by Project Censored out of Sonoma State University, that sit on the boards of directors of major international corporations in the arms industry, the oil industry, the banking industry, the insurance industry. And these all move together for their own common good. And that's apparently the level of conspiracy, if you will, that we're up against here.
Okay, well, let's switch over to Ken in New York. Hello, Ken. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Do you have a question for Richard Gage?
Yes, I do. A while back, one of you said that all of the video was destroyed by either ABC or the major networks.
BBC. When they were trying to resolve the issue of BBC reporting on the collapse of Building 7, 20-some minutes before it actually happened, BBC's answer was, well, we threw all those tapes away, so we have no explanation.
Well, I happened to see that live on PBS, so that means that there must have been American copies made. They wouldn't transmit it live without having a video backup. And it would seem to me that there was, does the Dodd laws about corporate record keeping apply to video? Or to media?
It depends on the corporation, but I mean, that video was all over the internet. I have a copy. You can see it on YouTube. I'm certainly going to be posting that tomorrow or Friday.
Because, if it wasn't available officially, if there were official copies made, then it would seem to me that there was some kind of fraud involved with record keeping or tampering with possible evidence.
I seem to recall there was actually a lawsuit against BBC by a British citizen who refused to pay his licensing fees because BBC had lied to him about Building 7. I forget how that case was finally resolved, but he did make a real big stink about it.
Yeah, they slapped him on the wrist. His name is Tony Rook, and they said, now go and be a good boy and pay your your TV
Antenna fee.
fees because they all have a TV. Yeah, but he didn't do it.
I saw that. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And we're going to switch to Bruce in Texas. Hello, Bruce. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes. Hello, gentlemen. Mike, are you aware that Ryan Dawson fervently holds on to the natural collapse, a fire collapse of Building 7?
I was
I've heard
unaware
about
of that, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, if you go to BitChute, he did a a debunking video with somebody else. It was kind of ridiculous. So that, guest host for you once in a while. He does a good job, though. But I thought I'd put that out there. Mr. Gage.
He's lost
you
his
do good work.
mind on 9/11.
Yeah, it's really when you get into the alternative media and you get good stuff and bad stuff, I guess we all make up our own mind. Yeah, apply physics and apply logic and just what you see. Mr. Gage, as far as the nanothermite, of course, that could have been used for cutting charges, but it would take too much nanothermite to do what we saw that day. You had firefighters, pieces of them, chunks blown blocks away. You had steel beams hurled into other buildings.
800 feet away.
Let me finish, sir.
Yeah, pieces of people were. Yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, you had a tremendous heat. You had people vaporized as they were running. You had explosions in the basement, and you watch the North Tower collapse. It generally the central core, which is huge, thick steel, just melts straight down. And you have a website. I'm almost done. The website is now offline, but you can find it at the way back. It's called the nucleardemolition.com. They did a study of all the dust samples, and there's huge concentrations of nuclear byproducts, this barium and strontium.
Yeah, but that story's been put out to try and kookify the whole discussion. As Richard indicated, there would have been a huge flash and a huge sound effect, more seismological records. A mini nuke can't be small enough to just take out a building. It would have taken out all of Lower Manhattan.
No, no, sir. No, sir.
I'm afraid so. Anyway, thank you for the phone call. We're running out of time here. We're going to switch to Pat in Fort Worth. Hello, Pat. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Do you have a question for Richard Gage?
Well, I was wondering, the book 9/11 on Trial, the World Trade Collapse by Victor Thorne, blaming Israel. I was just wondering how blaming. Well, anyway, that his death, which was February of 2016. He also wrote the Clinton trilogy. We know how bad that is about being Arkansas. She was running for president. I just wondered if anybody ever put those two together.
Not really. The 9/11 happened under the Bush administration, George W. Bush here. And one of the articles that I wrote about this.
No, his death, Victor Thorne's death.
Oh, okay. It's entirely possible.
Victor Thorne was really quite the researcher, and his brother thinks he died. That he wasn't murdered. I don't think anybody else believes that. I have my suspicions too, but I haven't looked into it. I did meet him. He's a very interesting individual. It does a lot of good. Did a lot of good work.
Since we don't know what happened to him, I know that like I said, the actuarial statistics of people dying under the Clintons was greater than the ones under JFK, right?
Very much so. That's a subject for another show, okay?
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Pat, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch to Nancy in Ohio. Nancy, do you have a question for Richard Gage?
I do. Mr. Gage, my family and I never believed the original story from the get-go. We came to Detroit to see you at give a lecture at the institute, the Architects and Engineers Institute. I want to say it's around Bloomfield, Michigan, at least 12 years ago, maybe. I have a friend that keeps telling me that nobody cares about what happened to 9/11. What happened? What's the
Breaking
true
news on the
story?
new.
And I'd like to know, is that true? Or do people not care? Because we still care.
Thank you. I care. I've been at this 14 years. Michael cares. And there are millions of people in the 9/11 truth movement who care. There are certainly some people who don't care. I think that's a problem for them and their conscience. And, if they know about it and they agree that there's controlled demolition in these buildings, then they better care. Other people simply don't know because we haven't, been working hard enough, I guess, to wake them up. But that's why we're on the radio right now. That's why Michael's been on the radio for how many years now, Michael?
Oh, well, certainly 19 since 9/11 itself, but I've been doing my website for about 30 years. I've been on the radio since 2007.
Well, 9/11 woke us up, and we've been looking at everything, researching everything since.
Yes.
And I just think that COVID isn't worse than 9/11, and for the same purpose, to destroy this country. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you're doing.
All right. Well, thank you, Nancy, for the phone call. And we're going to switch to Chris in Clearwater, Florida. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Comment and question. There, of course, there's BBC's Jane Stanley you mentioned, and there's a Fox 5 affiliate that reported Building 7 collapsed before it occurred. And CNN's Aaron Brown reported Building 7 collapsed before it happened. And because he's familiar with the New York City skyline, he could see it had not yet collapsed. So he reported it had collapsed with hesitation by correcting himself, saying, or it's about to collapse. And then shortly after that, he disappeared. So I have a question if since he had disappeared from the public scene for a while, if anyone knew what happened with him. And the other question is, CNN's Jamie McIntyre, the photojournalist covering the Pentagon, initially reported no large wreckage that indicated a plane hit the Pentagon and is in a loose change and 9/11 in plain sight, saying that. But now, since then, he says he took pictures of fuselage in parts, wreckage, cockpit, where originally he said there was no wreckage larger than the size of your fist. So I was wondering, maybe if that footage or photographs do exist, is CNN suppressing them? Is there has he released those photographs? Is there any news on that?
I had a distraction. My apologies. The photographs of what in particular?
Jamie McIntyre, CNN photojournalist, who originally reported that there was no large wreckage larger than the size of a fist. Then he later on said there was, and he took photos.
Yeah, I haven't seen him, and I don't know who has. The 9/11 truth movement is divided on what did or didn't hit the Pentagon. But what we all agree on is that nothing should have hit the most highly defended building in the world or more. It was obvious that the Twin Towers had been attacked in a concerted terrorist attack. So, and none of us believe that Hani Hanjour, who failed Cessna Flying School, could deliver a maneuver 270 degrees around the Pentagon, diving 3,000 feet per minute. And he doesn't hit Donald Rumsfeld's office through the roof, which would be the easy target, but he hits the Defense Intelligence Agency, which was looking for and auditing the Pentagon looking for the $2.3 trillion.
Okay, Chris, we're going to have to say goodbye. Richard, one more time, AE911truth.org over this weekend. So, Richard, sorry to have to cut you off, but we're at the end of the show. Remember, that's AE911truth.org for the weekend seminars.
Yep, and we'll see you all there.
All right. Thanks an awful lot, Richard. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN, spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate.